try 23 years old getting hired at a major airline onto a wide-body aircraft. That's amazing.
It seems normal right now for some reason.
Anyone thinking about becoming a pilot, now is the time.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilots, welcome back to another great episode of Ready for Pushback. I'm Nick Fialka, and today we are talking about life after simulators. So you get hired, you go through initial NDOC, you go through about a month of simulator training, and you get your type rating. You get passed on to start flying on the line, flying a real airplane with real passengers doing the real thing. And when they start you doing that, they don't just throw you out there with some schmuckatelli like me. They put you with somebody that is trained, who is a line check airman. And a line check airman is a person who has special training to be able to help you learn how the operation is done and how to be successful as a first officer or a new upgrading captain. And so I've got Al Sylvester with me today. He is at a legacy airline and has graciously offered to sit down with us and have a conversation about what he sees. He's such a nice guy, probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And I reach out to Al. Al is one of my mentors, and I reach out to him all the time when I have a question. You know, I'm a captain at my airline, and sometimes things get weird, and you need to make a good choice. And you should never, ever make the choice on your own. You should always expand your team. And he is a person that I expand my team to because he offers sage advice. And he was very generous to come on our show and talk to you and tell you what it's like to fly and to be in the initial operating experience world and what line checks are all about and all of that. I'll have other shows where we dive deeper into line checks and things, but this is certainly one of my favorite interviews. Thank you, Al, for coming on the show. So let's do it, all right? Sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback. Hey, pilot, did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere, or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, TridentHomeLoans.com, and check them out. Hey, pilot, it's Nick. I want to tell you about a great friend of the show, Timothy P. Pope. He's a financial planner, and he's completely focused on the professional pilot. He's the kind of guy you want to go to for real talk to help you figure out your financial future. With so many upgrades and so many transitions and so many things going on, you owe it to yourself to give him a call. He'll help you design and execute really smart financial planning strategies, whether it's retirement planning, investment management, military transition, tax planning. He's a great financial planning partner. Timothy P. Pope, CFP, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Give him a shout. All the information's in the show notes. You should definitely tell him I told you to call. Hey, pilot, does your pilot uniform make a short flight feel like a transcon slog? Flight Uniforms have reinvented aviation shirts with 3D stretch, stain repellents, and no wrinkles. These shirts are just plain comfortable and ready for takeoff right out of your rollerboard. Flight Uniform is trusted by more than 25,000 pilots, and their flagship flight shirt has over 1,500 five-star reviews. I've worn every pilot shirt out there, and if you know me, you know I only wear flight uniforms. Be the envy of every cockpit at flightuniform.com and get a special podcast exclusive discount with the code SpitfirePod20 to take 20% off your first order. That's SpitfirePod20, all one word, for 20% off your first order at flightuniform.com.
All right. Welcome, Al Sylvester, a line check airman at a major U.S. airline. And we are going to be talking about all things having to do with OE and line checking and all the things that Al sees. Al, thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Nick, it's absolutely a pleasure. It's an honor to be here with you. You know, we've been talking about this for over a year now, and congratulations on the podcast. I follow you. I listen to you. This is just an outstanding platform, and well done. Glad to be here.
Dude, I couldn't have done it without you harassing me all the time, so thank you.
It's part of my job. Thanks.
That's really all an line check airman is just somebody to harass you while you're flying. That's actually not true. All right, let me start it off with this. How long have you been flying at your company?
So it's been 24 years, and I've got to tell you, now is absolutely the best time in aviation history, as far as I can tell, to be a pilot. I'm involved in pilot outreach. I do a lot of mentorship. And for me, this just really came full circle. It was the right thing to do at the right time, to see everything through from beginning to end, to see all the students through from beginning to end. And what a fun time. The opportunities are limitless. Anyone thinking about becoming a pilot, now is the time.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much I agree. For perspective, right? So I got hired by my airline. I got awarded the Airbus A320, and I got the base that I wanted. And then after I finished my OE, I immediately got a line. I didn't spend 1 month on reserve or anything. What was it like when you were hired 25 years ago?
When I was hired 25 years ago, I can tell you this right now, I did not get the airplane I wanted, the position I wanted, nor the base I wanted. And I was happy to be here. I was so happy. It didn't matter where they put me. And I was an engineer on a 727, and I was happy to be here. And of course, as you know, we've been through so many things and so many changes throughout the years in the industry. I think a lot of people that got hired back when I was hired have realized that you have to be flexible in this industry. But right now, just like you said, it's happening so often where people are getting either exactly what they wanted or something even better than they wanted. A bigger airplane that they never imagined they would be able to fly, a base they never imagined they would be able to hold. It is absolutely stunning to me what's going on right now. It is amazing.
Yeah, I just still can't imagine. It just seems so crazy with people getting wide bodies out of training. Like they're not out of OE, but their initial plane is like a 350 or a 777 or a 78 or whatever. It's mind blowing.
Well, let's even go a little bit further than that. How about we've got people right now, and these are mentees that I've worked with, try 23 years old getting hired at a major airline onto a wide body aircraft.
It's crazy.
That's amazing.
It seems normal right now for some weird reason, but like first off, to be hired at a major at 23 years old. There was a young girl named Courtney in my class. She was 23. She got hired. She's going to be the number one on the seniority list when she retires for like a long period of time. And I mean, it was just unheard of. You'd be in your late 20s, early 30s before you could get on with any major airline if you came up any route, whether it was military or civilian.
And Nick, you know what? In my career, it took me 13 years to make wide body first officer. You think about that. 2 years flying as an engineer, several years flying narrow body on a various array of aircraft, 13 years. And now it's more like 13 days.
Yeah. How long did it take you to hold captain?
Honestly, I could have chased the seat, but I enjoyed seniority. So in my case, it took me 18 years.
18 years. And you could have chased a seat, meaning you could have like commuted like to New York or somewhere, right?
Absolutely, on an airplane that I never wanted to fly.
Everybody knows what the 737 is. I get it. No.
Bingo.
Oh, man. I'm sorry for all my 737 brothers and sisters.
Well said from an Airbus perspective.
That's right.
We are like minds.
That's right. All right, man. So I want to talk about the person that listens to this show is a pilot who is aspiring to get to where you are, aspiring to get to a major airline, aspiring to change their family tree. And so let's say I worked really hard. I hustled as hard as I could. I got my hours. I got my ATP. I did the stuff. I got hired by the major airline. And then I went through training, right? But it's not an episode about training, but I do want a snapshot that when you get hired, you do a whole bunch of simulators and stuff like that, and you learn how to fly the plane. You learn emergencies, you learn stalls, you learn V1 cuts, all those things. But then you do your initial operating experience. And will you talk me through, if I've never been at an airline, can you talk me through what this is all about?
Absolutely. Well, and again, this is not an episode about training, but let's snapshot training for a second so I can segue into OE. And IOE, it depends on what airline you work for, but essentially we know where we're going with this. So what are we doing in training? First of all, training is absolutely outstanding. It blows my mind how great the instructors do. Our training programs, our AQP programs just absolutely astounds me. And when you're in training, you are literally every day you go in and you go through these scenarios and they're all scripted. Think about it. Every one of them are scripted. And you're looking at PowerPoint and you're ready and you've studied everything that's scripted. Well, guess what? When you come out of training, you know the airplane, you know the emergencies, you know how to run the checklist, you know all of these things. And as soon as you walk out the door and you get on the airplane, the one thing that is not is scripted. None of it. Everything goes out the window. There's no PowerPoints anymore or anything else. We all have our iPads that we fly with and all that. So the first thing that happens is everybody comes out and looks at their iPad and they think, oh, this is going to be scripted. And of course, it's not. You find out in about the first 10 minutes that that is absolutely not the case. So we get there, you get into OE, and I'm going to say this, and I cannot emphasize this. And please, if I don't say this throughout this entire podcast, Nick, you help me keep emphasizing this. The number one thing that I can tell you other than coming fully prepared is attitude. It's attitude, attitude, attitude. Cooperate, graduate. It is the most amazing thing when people come in and they are well prepared and they have a good attitude. It changes everything about the way that we're able to do OE. And I want to say this right out of the gates, me notwithstanding. I work with absolutely some of the smartest, brightest, hardest working individuals anywhere that you can imagine. A day on is a day on. A day off is still a day on. It doesn't matter. Today around our house is Nick Fialka Day. And this is everybody got pushed to the early morning or the late afternoon because Nick has this time spot. And I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait. I'm not talking about you. So when you walk in, you get on the airplane, you meet your check airman, check pilot. And this is, first of all, I want to say it's an absolute privilege to do this, just to work with these people and to work with the students that come out. And think about it. We get all kinds. Okay. You're dealing with folks that have just come out of the military. We've got the civilian world. We have got captains from other airlines. Pick your airline. Everybody, it's almost like musical chairs right now. Everybody's kind of moving around. So you really don't know what you're going to get from day to day. But the bottom line is that when these folks get into this situation and everybody sits down into the airplane, it is not training. And we are going to start off with, like I said, our training department, outstanding. Understand it right now, training throughput is at its maximum. The line check airmen, we are working as much as we can work. So everything right now is happening very quickly. And your line check airmen are out here. What are we trying to do? We want to be sure that we know you can fly the airplane because you made it through training. We want to be sure now that you are successful as a line pilot, that you know what you're doing, that you're able to support the operation, not be a detriment to the operation. And at the end of the day, when we put our names on your sign off, I can tell you that we are all thinking, if I put my family, my friends, my loved ones on this airplane right now, would I put them on with this pilot? And that is what we're looking at the end of the day. We want you to look good too, by the way, because if you look good, we look good.
You mentioned being well prepared. What does it look like for somebody to be well prepared?
Oh, it is obvious just from the outset. It is when a person walks in, they're well prepared. It's in their persona. You can see this. You can feel it. They walk in and they know what they're looking at from the very pre-flight. They engage you in conversation with good questions. On the flip side, when someone is not prepared, they literally look at you and almost staring into space. They're afraid to ask questions. They just want to listen. Big difference. Huge, huge difference. And you know that.
So pretty much how I looked at you the whole time is the unprepared side. Got it.
I wish we could snapshot this right now. We're going to snapshot Nick.
That's right.
No, we're not.
I love that you said the attitude, right? Because I see that with, as I went through my process. I mean, first off, I was so excited, just so excited to be there and to be in the operation. But then I did the walk around, we learned the things, and the couple things I took away. Number one, the check airman sets the tone.
Absolutely.
And the ability of the check airman to put the student at ease, not even a student, really, like the coworker, whatever you want to call it, but also to put him at ease and also let him or her know, take a breath. We're going to go at your pace. We're going to talk through it, because as much as you get used to the sim, when you get in that jet for the first time, all of the sudden thing, like it just gets so overwhelming. I mean, God forbid you have some real emergency or some real problem with a person on the plane or something like that. I mean, just getting pushed back is so much stress.
Well, and I'll tell you, and this goes right back to what I was saying earlier. I work with some of the greatest minds in the industry, and all of us know, and this is what we teach our captains too, not just our brand new hires, our captains. And we set the tone, the captains set the tone. It's a big deal. And we want to make the pilots feel at ease. They're coming in to do OE with us. And everybody needs to be comfortable right out of the gate, setting a good tone. They need to know that we've got this. It's perfectly fine. We are here for them. We want to make OE as successful as possible. And we are here to do that. And we already know going into the OE, we know the background of the pilot. We know whether the pilot has already been through another OE. We know whether they're just fresh out of training, whether this is a transition pilot. We've already done, remember, this gets back to our days off that I was telling you about. We've already done our research. We've already talked to, if this is applicable, the other check airmen. So we're ready. We know what's going on. We're as ready as we possibly can be, but I will tell you, you can't be ready for everything. Trust me, I found that out the hard way too.
Well, I'll tell the pilot listening that you hear Al talking about, hey, I'm going to be 110% prepared and know everything about you. And I'll push that pilot that's listening as get up and get moving. And if it's your day off before your OE, you need to be diving in hard and looking at all the things and already be familiar and know what it is you need to accomplish on this trip. And that kind of leads me to my next kind of question. You have a list of things you have to get done. Like there's training that happens. It's not just flying passengers from here to Biloxi and back. It's a lot of things that you are teaching. And that I think is very interesting if you've never done it before, because you have a list of things that you need to get through. It seems like a ton of stuff.
All right, Nick, that was the perfect segue. Are you looking at my notes over here? Is that what you're doing? You're cheating, aren't you? This is the OE checklist. This is a living document, is a live document. And I can tell you right now that incredibly smart people have put this together and continue to work on it. I still can't figure out why they haven't asked me to help out, but that's beside the point. But this is it. This is the student's guide to what we're going to do, what we're looking for, what we have to cover, the things that we have to accomplish to get to the end of this. And that is have a successful sign off and a successful OE. And the beauty of these checklists is that it gives them everything they need to know, including references as to what to study, what to do, and what we are going to be emphasizing as we go through this entire process of OE. It's all laid out. Again, it's not laid out as clear. We can't do it as clear as the training department does because everything there is scripted. I can't script what air traffic control is going to do. I can't script what the aircraft is going to do. I can't script what the passengers or anybody else are going to do. But what I can do is make sure that we follow that OE checklist as much as we can. And that's where preparation for the students comes in, and that's where they go. That's your document.
What are some things that are on there? What's on the checklist that's some interesting tidbits that you guys do?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that because, of course, okay, we're Airbus guys, right? So we've got, what do we have? 319s, 320s, 321s, and we have NEOs. And what gets real interesting there is the differentiation between all of these aircraft, because we don't have simulators for all of these aircraft. Therefore, we have to talk about, what if you're on this particular version? What if you're on this particular version? How does this work versus how does that work? You saw this in training, but guess what? You didn't see this in training. And then on the checklist too, there are gotchas. There are just some playing up gotchas throughout the fleets. And we try to cover every bit of that as we go along. And the great part about our checklists are, as we go through these checklists, I can click off on every individual item that I've talked to the students about, whether it was a briefing or whether it was a demo, so we know where we're at and where we've got to go. And the students, they can look and they know what we've already covered. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And if I remember correct, there were some applicable things in there that you see in the simulator. You do it in the simulator and it's never perfect to what reality is. And I think too, in the Airbus, we have a flex takeoff and a TO takeoff, right? So it's like a reduced temperature takeoff, which is typically what you do, but also a max blast one that kind of pushes you a little bit faster. And, there are reasons you would do that, but it's demoed and hey, we're going to do a TO takeoff on this one just so you can see what it looks like and that kind of stuff. And I think that it helps you get comfortable as a student. It helps you get comfortable and know, like, this is not something scary. This is not a mystery. This is something that you can do, and you should be confident in that.
Oh, absolutely. Landing at different flap settings. One of the most fun things we do is auto lands.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
I actually had a captain that I flew with a while back, and he said to me, I want to see everything. Well, careful what you ask for because you might get it. His second landing was a true blue, honest to God, Category 3 auto land.
In the weather?
It was right down to minimums. It was absolutely, well, not minimums. We don't really have minimums for Cat 3, but bottom line is, it was absolutely perfect. It was a perfect setup. I believe it really was, technically speaking. It was down to about Cat 2 minimums when we shot it. And we did the full auto land. It was fantastic. I'm glad it was the last leg of the day. This guy was so excited. I don't think I could have kept him on the airplane any longer. He was done.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. So my very first day on OE at my airline, I flew with my instructor, my first guy. I was his third or fourth to last flight before he retired. And so it was a treat to be able to spend time with him. And we ended up with a long day. We ended up with 3 legs, something like that. And all of a sudden we had maintenance and delays and waiting on cabin crew and all sorts of things. And we ended up calling in fatigued on our very first day, my very first day at my major airline that I'm going to be at the rest of my life. But we had to make a grown-up call. We had to decide that we were at the end and at the limit of where we needed to be. and it's okay. And man, let me tell you how nervous I was. I thought, man, I'm going to get fired on day one. But he gave me the confidence to know that I need to take care of myself.
Well, I got to tell you right now, and that is something earlier where you said, what are the neatest elements, on the OE checklist? The neatest elements on the OE checklist are the ones that aren't there. It's the unexpected things. It is the unexpected that we get on a daily basis. And the funny thing is that a lot of people will study this OE checklist. They're going to come prepared and they are ready to go down at top to bottom. And we'll get through the first leg and they're like, well, you didn't open the checklist. And I said, oh, I didn't open that checklist. But guess what? We just checked off 9 items on that checklist by simply you experiencing them or us just having a discussion as we go along. It doesn't have to be bullet points. And I tell these pilots all the time, first of all, you're not Chuck Yeager, so let's don't roll in and be Chuck Yeager, because none of us are, including me. And I prove that on a daily basis. But one thing I want to go into with you, and this is kind of where we can move along in the what are the challenges? Yeah. What do we see? What can you expect? Because we've talked about, okay, how do we study? Well, yeah, you go to the OE checklist. This is great and everything else. But what are the real challenges? Well, of course, they're operational. But one thing I want to say, it's become very apparent to me that when people come out of a simulator, and more importantly, a simulator environment where you have gone in and you have looked at everything and you have gone through the bullet points and you've gone through your slides and everything and you know what's coming and you figured out now I'm on the line. You get out there and we see this almost muscle memory occur, if you will, where you're out of the simulator environment, you're now back in the flying environment, and your mind goes back to the last thing that you did in an airplane. What is that? Were you military? Were you civilian? Were you regional? Were you corporate? What were you flying? In most cases, it's probably smaller than an Airbus. Okay. And so we see a lot of that when it comes to procedures, even though the folks over in the schoolhouse have done such a wonderful job at training all of this. The muscle memory kicks back in of, well, this is what it looked like at my last job. What did it look like? Well, the airplane was going a whole lot slower, so I didn't really have to make that turn to final quite as quickly as I do in this airplane at 210 knots or 180 knots. I was going much slower. Or what if you're coming off of something small, okay? Something that sits down very low, and you hear that radar altimeter go off 50, 40, 30, but the sight picture doesn't look right, therefore you don't flare. That's right. That's exactly right. So these are things that you have to think about. And so notable challenges. Again, attitude. Can I say attitude again? This is so important. Your check airmen are here. We work really hard. We want you to be successful. And I promise we're going to be here. We're going to help you. We're going to answer your questions. And we know if you studied or not. We already know. Okay. We see this every day, every week. We already know. So when it comes to, let's talk about, for example, the military pilots. Okay. And this is no kick on anybody. This is just simple observations. Military pilots are not familiar with the civilian airports and the way that we operate at very, very high pace, very high density with ramps, ramp control, going to gates, jetways, and all of these things. And I had an OE months ago now. And so I've got a brand new first officer, military background, and our first day was very busy airport, big hub airport, big busy ramp. And where are we going? LaGuardia. You can't script this. You really can't. So we push back off the ramp, and the ramp controller says, okay. He says, and there are probably 5 airplanes pushed back at the same time we are. And he says, I need you to taxi left around this one, right around this one, left around this one, right around this one, stay in the right lane and contact ground on the south side. And the look on this pilot's face was absolutely amazing. So we did that. We get down the south side, we take off, and we're on the way up to LaGuardia. And he looks right at me and he says, I have not seen a ramp that busy since the push during the Gulf War.
That's an old guy. That's an old guy right there. But it's true as well. I'd say it's hard to think about having to manage that. And you get used to the life in the simulator and you know what to expect. And you're the only aircraft out there. And then all of a sudden, there's 400 aircraft and they're all different frequencies. And you have that. And as a military guy myself, that expanding your team part has been a challenge for me, and thinking, yeah, I've got to come up with a solution myself or else I'm nobody. But that's not the case. Is like expanding your team and knowing who to call, or if you don't know who to call if you don't know who to call. And really what I do is I text you because I'm like, oh no. But I want to also mention that it's okay to mess up. It's okay to not do it right. It's okay to make a mistake. The idea of OE is not that you are perfect, because you and I flew together and we have this ongoing joke where I oversped the flaps on final going into some small town, and it's just a reoccurring thing. But I messed up, and I had flown the Airbus before and I was really down on myself, and you brought that point to me, and I think I love you for it. And I just think that knowing that you're human and it's okay to be a human and you don't have to be a robot, just go and be and learn from your mistakes. That's what I've learned.
I couldn't have said that any better myself, Nick. And by the way, if you want to know how often I screw up, just speak to my wife. She'll be happy to remind you on a regular basis. The great news is that I own that. I certainly don't take myself too seriously. And again, I go back to this wonderful group of people that I work with that they really don't take themselves too seriously. And our job, here's the thing, is that we have to let you get down that rabbit hole a little bit sometimes and let you see what happens. And then it's our job to correct that or debrief it or however we choose to do it. And this is a learning experience. I'm not making this up. I actually had a student who called me one day. This is one of our mentees, and called me and was really, really, really upset because they had failed a check ride. And they said, I will never get hired with blank airline or blank airline. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, you clearly have never failed a check ride. I said, I don't know who you think you're talking to, but I have no idea what you're talking about, because all of us have made mistakes. I make them on a daily basis. The deal is I know how to correct them quickly, and that's what we learn. And every one of us will make mistakes, and this is what we do. We own them, and we move on. One of the things that we tell a lot of these students, we go through check ride failures and things like that, is what did you learn from that? And this is the bingo moment, the many bingo moments that we get on these OEs. What did you learn from that? Because at the end of the day, when someone is off of OE and they're flying the line, I want them to hear my voice in their head saying, you tried it once and it didn't work, don't do it again. And it is amazing to me the amount of texts, phone calls that I get or whatever going, oh, wow, I saw this today and I remember you said don't do this and it worked out. And that's a fun phone call to get. There's nothing greater than just being appreciated for really working hard and trying to help these folks out. That's what we're all doing at the end of the day. We want a safe, comfortable airline where we do a really nice job. We create a great service for the people that come out of training. They feel comfortable and they know that we are there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an awesome thing. I love all that. I want to switch gears on you a little bit.
All right, go ahead.
One of the things that is happening in aviation right now is that there are a ton of people retiring. And those men and women that are retiring are leaving. They've been 25, 35, 40 years at their airlines, and they're opening up tons and tons of opportunity, which is part of this hiring wave. The other part of our hiring wave is the fact that we're growing. each airline has a growth plan where they want to have more planes than they did before. And so you have these two things coming together that create this huge hiring vacuum that's bringing people in. One of the other things it's doing is allowing opportunities for fast upgrades, way faster than ever has been. I'm talking like 4 to 6 to 8 months. Some companies are like 18 months, but it's all coming down so fast, right? And so here you are as a check airman with essentially a new hire captain at a major airline. How do you manage that?
Well, I got to tell you, again, I go back to our training department and how fantastic they are, number one. So that's really twofold, Nick. Number one, the training is different. I'm one of the old guys, sorry, but I'm one of those guys. And coming up on 25 years at the airline and seeing everything I've seen, what I know now is that the quality of the pilots that are coming into the airline right now are absolutely incredible. So let's start with the young folks. Let me think back real quick. The youngest person I've done OE for yet was 27.
Wow.
My friend, she is someone that I've known for a long time. She absolutely nailed it. She had everything studied. She flew that airplane phenomenally. It was beautiful. This was one of the easiest sign-offs on OE that I've had. Absolutely fantastic. So when it comes to new captains, every airline has the way that they do it, whether the captain has to be at the airline a particular amount of time before they'll allow them to upgrade. But in our case, 3 years. If the captain is at the airline less than 3 years, we give them an extended amount of OE. Up to 47 hours, not up to 47 hours. They're required to have 47 hours. I have done this on numerous occasions, and let me tell you something. I have been incredibly impressed because these young captains have studied. They know their OE guides. They come in with a great attitude. They're ready to learn. They're ready to listen, because as a captain, we're not just teaching you how to fly the plane now. You've got to be a leader. You're setting the tone. You've got to make the decision, because at the end of the day, you're used to sitting in the right seat of an aircraft. And anytime a decision is going to be made, what do? You look left. Well, if you're sitting in the left seat and you look left into that window, what do you see? You see yourself. You're the one that has to make that decision. And I have watched, I'm trying to think now, I'm up to 5 or 6. I've watched 5 or 6 of these new captains, and they've been absolutely fantastic. They're very young, but they're enthusiastic. They have taken the time, and they're doing a very, very good job. So in my experience, this is going very well. And it's really, it has to do everything with these wonderful AQP programs that we have and how well the training is.
So I'm getting ready to upgrade, and I'm
I'm scared. Let's see. Can we go to the next subject?
On my desk right here, I have my emergency procedures. I have my limitations. I have the pictures of the cockpit so I can practice flows and things like that. So what advice would you give me to be successful?
Oh, that's right. We're on a podcast, aren't we? Okay, so there's a couple of things I can't say. Okay, this goes back to, first of all, as a new captain, you're going to have to go through the full initial qualification program again. So you get to go through IQ from the very beginning. And I've told a couple of my friends this, actually, who were actually more experienced than required. I said, no. First time captain, go through the full program. Take full advantage of that program. You cannot believe, even though you're a first officer on the airplane, you can't believe how many things that you have forgotten, that have been lost somewhere down the road. You go back, you start from the very beginning, you get all of this wonderful left seat training, and you go through the entire program. Study, be prepared for that. And the syllabus is laid out for you. It's perfect. And then you're going to go to the OE checklist, of course, like we talked about. But for you as a captain, whatever operations manual that you have at your company, flight operations manual, be it whatever it is, you need to know that backwards and forwards. You have to know the company procedures, because as a captain now, you are not only responsible for the aircraft and the people in it, but now you have to deal with the gate agents, the ramper, everyone below wing, everyone above wing. You have to deal with everything, and you are the resident expert on everything. And you have to know company procedures. You must know who to call and when to call, and everything is laid out in whatever operations manual your airline uses. You have to know that. That's really important.
That's really good. I love that. It is that operations manual I see is kind of this living document to the day-to-day life of that airline.
Absolutely.
Right. And so if you know that, because if you don't know it and you do something against it, whether it's a live animal or hazmat or how you deal with a medical emergency or who to contact for a maintenance issue or whatever that thing could be, or starting an engine, talking to ramper, all these things and how you should handle that. If you skip that part, then you're going to get hammered a lot harder than if you have a working knowledge of it and are able to weave yourself in and out of a situation that is non-standard, because that's what it's all about. The standard stuff is easy, right?
And for us, we can go through our OE checklist and we can tell you, as long as we have the opportunity to talk, we can tell you all of our experiences, what to do, what not to do. But at the end of the day, we can't cover everything. And it is incumbent upon you to know the company procedures. And if you get into a bind, know where to find the procedure. And if not, know who to call. And most importantly, never, ever, ever, ever do anything that would jeopardize the operation. Know to stop the operation for safety and make that call. And you will always be supported for stopping the operation for safety. And this is what we try to tell all of our captains. It stops with you. And you must make that call sometimes. You have to make that call, and you have to know who to call and when to call.
Yeah. If things are moving fast, take a deep breath and focus and stop. Set the parking brake, have the conversation.
That's it.
Tell ground you're going to be there
Set
for a couple minutes, whatever you got to do.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's going to be the name of my next podcast, is Set the Parking Brake.
Is that when you retire?
Yes. Man, that's awesome. Al, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me and with the pilot and helping them understand all of the parts of the operation that come after training, because that really, people understand the simulators, they know what to expect. But once you get on the line, it can be a scary thing. And I think you did an awesome job of helping us peel the onion and really diving deep into it. So thank you for spending the time. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for picking up the phone whenever I call you late at night with a hard question and I need to know something to do. Like, thank you for all of that.
It is my pleasure. I promise. It really is. And Nick, just congratulations on everything you've done with Ready for Pushback. This is fun. This is really, really, really exciting. The fact that you may be moving close to me is scaring my wife, but that's okay. Probably yours too. But we are looking forward to this. And, I'll tell you, you've done a great job. And it is just a sincere pleasure to be here. And it's an honor to be able to do what I do and serve the pilots of this airline and to make it a better place. And I promise anybody thinking about flying airplanes right now, these check airmen are out here doing absolutely nothing but making sure that you are the best you can be when you come to the line.
This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring, and you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish, and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, SpitfireElite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.